We are going to get into part 3 of assault upon the seed. Quickly, we started this out when the Lord said that he was going to put enmity between the woman and the serpent, and that the serpent would bruise his heel, but her seed would bruise his head. We went fast forward to where Jesus said that the good seed and the harvest were the children of the kingdom, and the tares were the seeds that were sown by the wicked one. So we know that there are seeds that are evident of God's planting, and there's the seeds that are sown by the devil. But going back to the garden, we immediately see where the serpent was paying close attention to what God said, that the seed of the woman would bruise the serpent's head. And it was almost like the attitude of the serpent was, not if I get him first, he won't. And so we find where a case of Cain slew his brother Abel. We go forward again where Jesus talked about where a generation had Isaiah had well spoken of them, about the wrath of all the righteous, from righteous Abel up to Zacharias, son of Berechias. And we scratched our heads and thought Adam was a man who had the whole world. Yet Jesus said the blood of the righteous starting with Abel. So as we go through this, we're finding discoveries of things. And we got into part 2, and there was the great flood of Noah, where the enemy had provoked and multiplied so much evil in the world that God destroyed the whole earth and decided we're going to start over. And then there was Shem, and we got in from Shem, whose name means the name. Shem's name means the name. So when you say the God of Shem, we go to the God of the name. And then there was God of Abraham, and Abraham is the father of many nations. And so we find that now God begins to say that the seed that he had talked about in the Garden of Eden that was going to bruise the serpent's head, that seed is going to come out of Abraham's loins, and it's going to bless the whole world. Yes. So we start seeing that God is saying, I haven't forgotten. There's 2,000 years from the Adam in the garden to Abraham. And God tells Abraham, the seed is going to come out of your loins. So the enemy is quick to find out, wait a minute, he's still on that. We come to part 3, where the assault upon the seed continues. It's not about you or me, per se. This is a war between good and evil. Satan had purposed to destroy the seed. And he had God provoked to wrath, where God wiped out all the human race except for 8 people. If God had not spared those 8 people, that declaration of a seed coming forth from the woman would have been cut off. So we continue to go up to where we are today. Assault upon the seed. The fight has not stopped. Prior to the birth of Isaac and before Abram was called Abraham, the Lord talked to Abram. In Genesis 15 and verse 13, and he, the Lord God, said unto Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. and thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. In the passing of time, all things occurred as the Lord had said unto Abram. The 12 tribes of Israel ended up in Egypt and were serving with rigor. It seems as though that if God tells you you're going to be this great and glorious nation, it almost like you take 10 steps backward before you can take a step forward. When we get to Exodus, after the 400 years had been served, before it even got to the 400 years, while they were in Egypt finding a place of refuge, in Exodus chapter 1 and verse 8, now there arose a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us. So get them up out of the land. So they're figuring, okay, they're going to try to escape or whatever. Let's do this. Do you know the threat of power, fear of losing commerce, and all these other things always lead to this? And always lead to this is I'm going to get you before you get me. And so here we are. And it says, Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Python and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. It's almost like pruning a tree. The tree seems to enjoy it. It's coming back stronger now than it was before, and it seems as though the rigor and the hardship of Israel is now making them grow stronger in spite of the afflictions of Pharaoh. And the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. Pharaoh assaulted the seed of Abraham by killing all male children at birth. All the powers of darkness needed to know was that the holy seed abided with the children of Abraham. With such knowledge, the seed was within reach of the evil assault. Satan's looking at it this way. They're right here. Based upon God's information and his covenant, these are the people that's going to have the seed that God talked about 2,000 years ago that's going to bruise my head. And Satan is now working against the children of Israel. We talk about the God of Shem. Who was it? Was Jim? Jim was the one who told us that when you talk about anti-Semitic, don't let me say this if it's not right, Jim. Anti-Semitic is not really with the Jews, it's back to the God of Shem. Is that correct?
The descendants of Shem.
Yes, the descendants of Shem. So Satan, even today, when you talk about people being anti-Semitic, he has never forgotten that it was the God of Shem and the descendants of the Shem seed when Noah said, Blessed be the God of Shem. So Satan is collecting data. He knows, and now that Abraham has entered into this covenant with God, everything is happening. He knows that the children of Israel, from which the seed of Abraham is going to bring forth the seed of this woman, or the human race, he is saying in himself, they're right here. They're right here. If I kill all the males, well, that's it. Because the seed comes from the males. Okay. In spite of Pharaoh, the Lord God sought brought Israel out with a mighty hand. While in the wilderness, the Lord sought to prove his people, only to be provoked to wrath. The Lord was prepared to destroy Israel and to start over afresh with Moses. Moses reminded the Lord that all other nations would think that the Lord could not provide for his people in the wilderness. Another assault upon Israel was averted. That God was ready to start over. And any starting over seemed to just buy time, but the Lord reminded Moses reminded the Lord that you don't want to give the world an occasion to charge you with having an inability to provide for your people. Let's move forward. Let's get a little bit closer. And when we're going to go about this covenant of David, and we're going forward because I realize my audience, we are not novices. A lot of you understand about David. He was the second king of Israel, right? He was the first good king of Israel. And so we're going to pick up in 2 Samuel 7 and verse 12. And when thy days be fulfilled, this is the Lord talking to David, thou shalt sleep with thy fathers. I will set up thy seed after thee. Hello? Anybody listening? I'm sure the enemy is, because it was Abraham, and now the Lord is saying, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build an house for my name, because that's what David was always wanting to build, a house for the Lord. And I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. God has now pinpointed where the seed is going to be. And the enemy who assaults the seed is following all the evidence to launch another offensive. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. If he commit iniquity, I will chasten him with the rod of men and with the stripes of the children of men. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee. And thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever. Before thee thy throne shall be established. How long? Forever. According to all these words and according to all this vision, so did Nathan speak unto David. This is the prophet that came to David, and David has acquired favor in the sight of God. We are in chapter 7, 2 Samuel, verse 15. If you are the enemy, and you know that God, or you had an enemy that was planning to gain nuclear weapons, and he said there's going to be one that's got your name on it, I think you would want to pay attention. And God is saying that this seed that I talked about in the garden, 2,000 years later, it showed up with Abraham. Now it's showing up with David. You might want to pay close attention. Now, we are going to move forward here to 2 Samuel. David, after getting the promise of God that his seed would sit upon the throne of Israel and that his seed would abide forever, look what's happening here in 2 Samuel chapter 12. David kind of fell off the wagon here. David committed adultery with a faithful servant's wife, one of the men that was in David's personal guard, if you will, protecting the king, loyal servant. David took the man's wife, laid with her, she found herself with child, and David dispatched orders to have her husband placed at the forefront of battle. I can't give David credit for this idea because it's not original with him. David learned this behavior while he was in service of Saul. Saul would give David assignments where David was supposed to go out and die. He started out requesting this unreasonable request, which I won't state, what he wanted from David in order to take the hand of his daughter, Michal. And David sure proved himself more than worthy of the task, but David was supposed to go out and die. David was given these difficult tasks. And the same thing that happened in Israel was happening in David's life. The difficulty seemed to make him more famous. Isn't that amazing? The hardships was making David more popular, stronger, and Saul was beginning to think, this guy is a threat. Have you ever seen that before? This same thing happened in Egypt. You need to know that it's not a matter of who it is, it's anybody. It's not just those people over there, it's any one of us. And so Saul is now doing to David the same thing that Pharaoh was doing to Israel, and David is getting greater because of it. So Nathan departed from his house, and the Lord struck the child. Here's where the child that was conceived from David's adultery has been born, and the child is now stricken. And David knew about it, and so Nathan departed unto the house, and the Lord struck, after telling David that God knows what you did, David, and he's not pleased, the child that Uriah's wife bare unto David, and it was very sick. Now, Uriah, I believe, is already dead at this point. So the Bible is making that reference that David committed this while she was another man's wife. David therefore besought God for the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the earth. And it came to pass on the 7th day. Now, I don't know that David fasted 7 days. He fasted all night. And on the 7th day that the child died, and the servants of David feared to tell him that the child was dead. For they said, behold, while the child was yet alive, he spake unto him, and he would not hearken unto our voice. How will he then vex himself if we tell him that the child is dead? I want to pause right here. David, you remind me of Adam that did wrong and tried to cover it with fig leaves. David, you can't cover this. David, you can't cover this with prayer and fasting. God has made a judgment, and unfortunately, David, you're not the one that's going to die. The child is sick, and you're trying to stop it. I want to stop for just a moment and just ask ourselves, David, what do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? You were told prior to this that God had favor with you, and that He's promising your seed to sit upon the throne. When God told Abraham he was going to have a child by Sarah, somebody went out and said, well, maybe the surrogate is what he meant. David, you were told that you were from your seed, there was going to be this one that would sit upon the throne of Israel. If this child was to live, do you realize the gossip that would follow? David might just say, I fasted for this child lived. This has got to be the one to sit upon my throne. You see how we just mess things up.
Right.
God is perhaps looking, David, we can't do this. We can't do this, David. Do you know years from now people will say, well, Uriah did come home from the war. So we don't know. God cannot tolerate there to be an absence of clarity on what he's doing on something on this level.
Right.
You can't sow this confusion. David, don't even ask me. It's like Moses. Lord, let's talk about me going into the promise. Moses, stop it. I want to thank you by telling you, don't you bring it up again. We learned some lessons the hard way.
Yes, sir.
David, don't ask me to spare the child. You can fast. In fact, the Lord says to me, after 24 hours, I'm going to show you, you might as well get up from here, because on the 7th day, the child died. And I don't know how long David fasted. But the Lord's judgment was swift and it was clear. And when David finished fasting, he understood that God said no.
Right.
But David, there's an assault upon God's plan, and you're fasting and praying and you're cooperating in the midst of sin. Thank God that he knows what he's doing, amen, in spite of us.
Right.
But when David saw that his servants whispered, David perceived that the child was dead. Therefore David said unto his servants, is the child dead? And they said, he's dead. David, we're not going to run any risk on this thing. Now God in his infinite wisdom made a covenant with David. God made a covenant with David. David has no clue how far-reaching this is. But when we think about Jesus Christ, he's supposed to come from the loins of David. Right here, there's some debate whether it's whether it's Uriah's baby or David's maybe. Tongues get to wagging.
Right.
History gets to sharpening in its pencil, and you get in a mess because of this kind of thing. We do it today. They did it back then. Mm-hmm. And God in his wisdom shut it all down.
Right.
But he kept his promise to David. We go a little bit further. So the seed and the confusion was averted. We go a little bit further. Israel is now out of bondage. There's kings and queens that come after them. And we come to this place where there is a Queen Esther who sits upon the throne. Israel's been carried off. This is the time of the Medes and the Persians now that rule Israel because of disobedience, but God is still holding it all together. And Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there's a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to continue to put up with them. He goes further and says, if it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed.
Right.
And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business to bring it about into the king's treasury. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of the Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Now here's the king, the ruler of the world, because the Persians, the Medes and the Persians ruled the known world. And so they're cutting deals. Now, they may cut a deal, but Israel is cut out. This is assault, not about, it may appear that it's about Mordecai and King Ahasuerus and Esther. It's really about that seed.
Right.
And if Satan has to exterminate and wipe out every Jew on earth. He's ready to do it. And here we go again. This is an assault on the Messiah that has been promised to come, and the world doesn't know about it. But look how it's being orchestrated by the powers of darkness that know that if the human race is going to be saved, it can't get saved if that seed is not allowed to come.
Right.
And the king said to Haman, "The silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee." Well, there's nothing that he seemeth good, of course. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month, and there was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and the governors that were in every province, and to the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, in the name of King Ahasuerus, as it was written and sealed with the king's ring. This is a legalized genocide to wipe out the Jews. Just to make sure you get this one seed. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy and to kill and to cause to perish. How many Jews? All of them. Both young and old. Both little children and women. In one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to take the spoil of them for a prey. I don't know that this has ever been decreed in history, to wipe out an entire race of people from off the face of the earth. And there it is. Don't stop at anything. You don't let that seed come into this world. And you can see the assault is not really about the Jews. We know what this is all about, don't we? We know what it's all about, don't we? Absolutely.
Yes.
It's about the King of Glory. Now, Satan, he came into the Garden of Eden not by invitation. Uninvited, he came in. He is obviously of the persuasion that God isn't asking him what he thinks. God isn't checking with him. It seems as though this conflict is one of unconditional war, no holds barred, anything goes. God is sort of like got his hand tied behind his back, in that he's got a people that don't want to cooperate. And he's trying to save them in spite of themselves, except they're not even in on the plan. So we run into this kind of thing. But here's this guy planning to destroy all the Jews around the world. Young, old, male, female, it doesn't matter. Now, Pharaoh was only going to kill the boys in Moses' day. Haman, he says, every last one. And I think there's a holiday among the Jews that recognized this time that they had to go through.
Pure.
Is it Yom?
Pure. P-U-R-I-M.
Purim? Is that what it's called? Okay, thank you for that. Well, guess what? The Jews managed to, by the divine hand of God, to wiggle out of that, and there was no extermination of global genocide to the Jews. But the enemy didn't give up there. We come to 2 Kings, and we get to the place where there are the bloodlines of the kings. We see here that there is the extermination of the princes. Princes, not princesses, but princes. And in 2 Kings 8 and 25, Ahaziah reigned in Judah. In the 12th year of Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, did Ahaziah, the son of Joram, king of Judah, begin to reign. 22 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, daughter of Omri, king of Israel. Now I put this in here also. So Omri slept, that's the king of Israel, slept with his fathers and was buried in Samaria. And Ahab, his son, reigned in his stead. Do you see this? That Athaliah is the daughter of Omri the king. And at the same time, Omri slept with his fathers. And Ahab is the son that reigned in the stead of Omri. Is there a relationship between Athaliah and Ahab? Huh? They look like brothers and sister, don't they? Yeah, the father, King Omri. Here we see Athaliah, daughter of Omri, king of Israel. And here we see Omri slept with his fathers, and Omri, his son, reigned in his stead. So Athaliah, your brother, is the king, the successor of your father. So now we go down to, and Ahab had 70 sons in Samaria. Not 17, but 70. And it came to pass when the letter came to them that they took the king's sons and slew 70 persons and put their heads in a basket and sent him them to Jezreel. You realize how horrible this is? Mm-hmm. This is just beyond ruthless. What Satan is doing to get rid of the bloodline of David, to prevent this one that's going to sit upon the throne. Look at the extremes that he's going through. It's not about, we are caught in the middle of something where we as individuals, we have no clue. This is our history, where God has promised something for us. Now I see that right there, that Omri is the father of both the king of Israel, or the father, king of Israel, of Athaliah, and her brother Ahab. Things continue to go, and you look at in the Middle East about all these people that just kill each other to gain power, and look what happens. Athaliah reigns in Judah. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed what? Her son is dead. So now here she goes, murderous and killing all the seed royal. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram, sister of who? Ahaziah, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons, which were slain, and they hid him, even hid him in his nurse in the chamber from Athaliah. So he was not slain. And he was with her, hid in the house of the Lord 6 years, and Athaliah, who is sister of Ahab, did reign over the land. Now Athaliah, daughter-in-law, should have been the queen. Instead, she ordered the immediate destruction of all the family of David already thinned by previous massacres. All of this killing and fighting and everything is because God said the seed is going to come from David. Mm-hmm. And look what's the havoc that's wreaked upon David's family and the throne of Israel. Now, help me sort through this. But I had this all sorted out, so I'm going to have to go through it again. It looks as though that there is a Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons, and they hid him. So it seems as though she had all of them except that one. Now Ahab had 70 sons, and all of them got it. Mm-hmm. So now look at this. This is another massacre, but only one. And she was in her mind, he was with her, hid him in the house of the Lord. How many years? 6 years. And Athaliah, his sister, did reign over the land. Really, it should not have been Athaliah, should not have been queen. It should have been the wife. Yes. It should have been his wife that should have been queen, not Athaliah. But you see how we just do this stuff. Thank God that unless I've got it mistaken, this grandma, you're about to kill your grandson. Satan will find a way for betrayal, no matter how hard he has to go to get it. My grandma killed all of my siblings, and she was coming after me, and I was hidden. So anyway, God again finds a way for the seed royal to survive. If that isn't enough, there's another case where you see here's the seed of Israel. They're just not cooperating, by the way. They're not trying to keep the seed pure. And in Ezra chapter 5 and chapter 2 and verse 59, and these were they which wept. And those were names was really a lot. I'll let you see if you that went from Telmela to Telharsa to Cherub to Adan to Immer, but they could not show that their father's house and their seed, whether they were of Israel. So these guys don't know their father's house. They don't know what tribe they're from. But you see here, these sought their register among those that were reckoned by genealogy, but they were not found. Therefore were they as polluted, put from the priesthood. They can't be a part of Israel in any way. You don't even know your genealogies. They wanted to be a part, but we can't risk it. The holy seed must be preserved, and we can't risk it. All these had strange wives. These are what the men did. And some of them had wives by whom they had children. The royal seed is polluted. All of those who had children that were not of Israel, that you can't prove your genealogies, you're cut off. Any questions? God is sparing no length. No, he's sparing nothing here. This has got to be done, and has got to be done right. So now we see here that the groups or specific families returned from Babylon in exile that could not prove their ancestral genealogies as Israelites. Babylon came after Israel, after got out of bondage, after David sat upon the throne, and they went into idolatry and they were carried off. So you can see that regardless of how far we are, that this thing won't stop. The Messiah is going to come from somewhere. We have got to stop him from getting here. And there's nothing being spared here in terms of bloodshed, confusion, ruthlessness, whatever it takes. The enemy knows that this is winner take all. It's all for keeps. That God will not stop. It's not going to withdraw his promise. So therefore the enemy cannot withdraw his vicious attack. And we as Gentiles, we weren't even aware of all of this. But yet look at what's going on. Men, women, children, even entire groups of people that were born of strange wives. The prophet Nehemiah and Ezra says, get rid of them. The royal seed cannot be polluted. And I think this is just about the end. It is. I told my wife, I said I will get done early, because if I go into this next episode, it will get into something else. And she always wisely tells me, honey, you download so much and people will get confused. And this is a lot. I had no idea all of this went on until I start this study, the assault upon the seed. I didn't realize all these people were slaughtered and killed, and that the whole world was prepared to commit genocide to all the Jews just to stop Jesus Christ from getting here. This is the blood that was shed before we even got the name. It's a war that's been going on, and when we're going to stop, next week we're going to get into some more. We're going to find out some things that's happening and what's happening on the other side after the seed is delivered, and you're going to be surprised that this thing just does not stop. We here now know that it does not stop. Any questions? Any thoughts, concerns, cares, observations, criticisms, anything? Yes, Brother Carls.
I often said in some of the New Testament, you fight blood and guts.
Yes.
Heard it tonight.
Yes. Yes. I had no idea when I heard about these names, Brother Carls, to your point. I didn't realize these were grandmas killing kids. I didn't realize this was family killing each other like this. I had no clue. Yes, Brother Olson.
Haman, 20 generations before him, was Esau. He is descended 5 times from the Agagite, which is a descendant of the Amalekites, which is a descendant of Esau, 1,500 years. So you have brother still wanting to kill brother.
Wow. Wow. How far does it go back that this kind of thing just won't stop? And God knows who's related to whom. And he knows where the bloodline or that seed has got to come from. He knows. And he is very, very wise and infinite in wisdom as to keep all of this stuff from boiling over. And I had no idea until I did this study. David, you're praying for the survival of something that could lead to a house of horrors, of confusion, years later. Is it David's baby or Esau's maybe? You just can't run the risk. God makes sure that everything is clean. But yes, all day long, it seemed like these people were the ones counted as sheep for the slaughter. Well, I've enjoyed this, presenting this tonight. And next week we'll get to some more, because it's going to get deeper. And it's going to get more ugly. Why would man be trying to stop God from coming into the world that's going to save him? Why would we do that? It's beyond being able to comprehend. Let us all stand.